Good evening, friends. Hope you're having a great night here on Tuesday, August 22, as the summer winds down. So, what I'll talk a little bit tonight is something that, well, I'm kind of prove the left wrong here. I'm talking to little different left friends, and through the years, actually, especially the last 10 years or so, people that I know that are left wing. Some a little left wing, some very left wing. And the more left wing, they're adamant about how things are so much better in society now because of the woke. So much better because of what's going on. We're so knowledgeable about problems and things. Yeah, right. Okay. Actually, we have more issues, hate, racism, anything right now than when I was ever lived in my life. And I'm 58 years old. Two reasons why. Well, one main reason, but another kind of effect of it, the second part. Let's talk about the first one. This is where the proof of the pudding is. The youth of our nation. Kids. Growing up through grade school, into high school, into college, but specifically in grade school, junior high, that type of thing. There's a big difference between kids now, kids when I grew up in the 70s. I went to grade school. I graduated grade school in 1979, 8th grade, from St. Joseph's School in Salem, New Hampshire. And here's kind of a proof of things. My mom retired last year. She's 87 years old. She worked, last year, part-time all the way until like 86 years old last year. She was in the school system since 1975, the same one. So, starting out with St. Joseph's and then trickling back and forth to Woodbury School, which is also in Salem, New Hampshire. One was a Catholic school that I went to, and the other one was just a public school, right down the road. Same school system. Worked there from 75 in the kitchen all the way to last year, 2022. That is 22 and 47 years. She wanted to work even into her 80s. She liked it. Interaction with all the kids, and they all liked her and stuff. They knew her. She became one of the senior people there over the years. But the biggest thing I want to take about this is the fact that she has seen so many changes over the years with the kids. This is the proof of society. In 1979, my 8th grade class graduated. It was interesting because I used to go visit my mother afterwards every now and then when she was working. Pop in, visit her, knew some of her friends she was working with, the ladies in the kitchen. And I remember coming back at the time from some training. I was in the Marine Corps when I first started the military. Came back and I saw her. Some of the teachers were still there from when I graduated. Some training I was doing, whatever. And I remember it was like 1985, or 86 or 87, around that time frame. I would say 86 or 87. 87 probably. And I remember that time frame that some of the people that were talking about my graduating class, that from like the early 70s to all the way to the mid 80s, my class was the worst. Meaning we're little hoodlums, troublemakers, things like that. Like from the early 70s to like mid 80s, about 12 years span, give or take. We were the worst. Okay? My mother says, project forward, kids, in the 2000s, in the last 15, 20 years, what they're like. Totally different. We never once hoodlums. Not really. I remember our class vividly. I was a class clown all the time. All the time. Doing stupid things on purpose. But some people a little wise ass type thing. I remember a couple of, and getting a teacher's nerves. But it was nothing. We were the worst, supposedly, in a 12-year span. Never once was anybody threatened by any violence. We never tried to hurt any teachers. We never even had it in our mind. None of us were scared of any other kids. There was nobody that had a threat of their life or anything like that. Nobody threatened to hurt anybody. You might have some brawls, kid brawls out with other grades and stuff like that. the other eighth, because it was 2 grades, the other 8th grade and stuff like that. But there was none. We played football and recess and enjoyed different things. There was never anything. Whatever issues we had was very minor. We loved our teachers. Even though now and then make fun of them, you loved them. And they knew that. And they loved us. Even though we were the worst in 12-year span. Today, my mother said, it started to happen in the mid-90s and it got worse and worse and worse. Today, 7th, 8th graders go in with weapons, knives, guns, sometimes. And there's cops in the local schools there because teachers have fear for their lives. Okay? My mother went to say, my class would have been considered angels compared to what goes on today. And we were the worst of that time period. Just think about that. Because now we have a rise of single parents, with people who, the marriage and the family is being attacked by the secular liberals, has been for years. Okay? These same people who are big in abortion and all that. Kids have nothing to come home to in a lot of ways. They're not being taught. There's no discipline. So they act like that. You want to see a society, how it breaks down? Look at the youth. Specifically, 13, 14, 15. Look at the youth growing up. The difference between them now, 40 years ago. My mother's living proof. She saw how kids went in the school system. How these same age kids digressed by the decades, starting basically around the mid-90s when things started to get really, with the Clinton administration and left-wing liberals, and just escalated. You want to see a society, good, bad, or indifferent? Check out the youth. On a caveat of that, something that really depresses me, look, I've been in the military, all told, of 39 and a half years, basically since Christ was a corporal. Most of it's active duty, but I did have a stretch where I was at reserve in the middle there for a while. But the whole total service is 39. When I get out the end of next year, it'll be close to 41 years of total service. Not quite, but close. I've seen changes in the military. Technology, some are good. I've made many friends. I loved being in the military. There's been some bad times, but many, many more good times. Many, many more. Wouldn't change the career for anything. But the military right now, in the last several years, is having a major retention issue. One of its worst issues since I've been around in the military. They're having major issues with the mid-ranks. Now, if you're not in the military, you don't understand what I'm talking about. But, so the officer ranks, but if you are, you'll understand, basically captains and majors, meaning those like the middle, that's when you're just starting to get important, so to speak, in the officer world. Enlisted, sergeants, staff sergeants, those are like when you first become a non-commissioned officer. My rank, sergeant major, which is the top of the enlisted, we're not really having issues because there's not that many of us. But the middling ranks, which basically make up most, those type of officers, the middling officers and the middling enlisted people, make the majority of the military. Having major issues keeping these people in past their first term, maybe second term. Why? When they're making the decision, do I want to stay in long term or get out? This is the time to do it. Why? There are a number of reasons. One of them is the military is going soft. It's very woke. I'll tell you now, I love the military, but if I was in that stage now, I wouldn't stay in, knowing what I'm going to see for the future. I don't think I would. I can see why these people are going to go. It's not because of the money. Unlike yesteryear, so to speak, when I first went in, the military pays pretty damn well, especially if you have a lot of years in. Okay? I'm living proof. It's pretty damn good pay. It's comparable to outside good jobs. It really is. If you've been in a while and you put some rank on you, it's not a question of the monetary. It's the question of the environment. We're afraid to hurt people's feelings. That's more important than anything in the military now. Diversity, which is not wrong having different people, and not hurting people's feelings is all that's important. trumps everything else, like a joker in a game, in a game of poker or whatever. Okay? We're concerned to the point where basic training, when I went to Marine Corps basic training in the 80s, it was no joke. But it was fun when you graduated. It was one of the best experiences I'll ever remember in this grape of mine until I leave this world, was the experience of the Marine Corps basic training. It's got a reputation. It's very much still like that. The Marine Corps hasn't changed much. Sadly, the others have. But when you graduate, you feel like you've accomplished the world. You make friends. And you realize, of course, as you're going on, you adjust after the first couple of weeks. The drill instructors, you have such respect. Yeah, it's difficult in a sense. You don't have the freedoms. You get your ass kicked every now and then. I don't literally mean physically. But what you have to do, a lot of exercising, a lot of just mind game playing. But there's a reason for it. The Army used to have something called a shock attack, which is very similar. My brother went through it when he went to Fort Jackson years ago. Similar to what the Marine Corps does. I don't think it's quite as hard, quite as intense, but it's close. Basically, you get there and they attack you, the drill sergeants. It's called drill sergeants in the military, drill instructors in the Marine Corps. Same thing. Big hat, Smokey the Bear hat. And you get there and you can't do anything right. You drop a duffel bag or something happens, you're going to have 4 people around you and they purposely just scream in your face. That's done for a reason, to create character, discipline, instill the fog of war. If you're in a wartime environment, they call it the fog of war. You have to think on your feet. It's not normal. It's going to be like that, except worse. The people are going to try to kill you. When you're in a military, in a state where there's enemy, they don't care about your political correctness or being nice to you. They want to kill you. Especially the enemies we have now. That's all they want to do. But the military is getting soft. Don't hurt people's feelings. This, that, and the other. One of the main reasons I believe, and many believe, they're having problems keeping people in. I see the difference between the privates coming to us compared to when I went. The respect level they have, because they just don't have instilled like they used to be. It's not because the drill sergeants aren't good anymore. It's because they're not allowed. Their hands are tied a lot of times. So that's my talk for the day. All right, that's an offshoot. The military is an offshoot. There's many people that are good kids. I'm not saying every kid is bad. That's silly. And there are many wonderful military people. I work with them every day that are very professional, intelligent. And of course, we're an older group where I work, a much older group. It's not, the people where I work are generally speaking senior level. So we're at the end of our careers, or the majority of us are the later part of our careers. So we don't have that type of group. There are many people though in the military, great people, but we nevertheless have issues. We have issues with children. And of course, I said we're having issues with the military. Again, the liberals say everything's so much better. I disagree. You want a synopsis of society? Look at the confusion of children today, the violence at young ages that never even came close to experience years ago. There were always some, but not like now. That's my talk for the day. It's Rick here. God bless.